Here, it is now 7 o'clock. We will begin the meeting. Please join me with the pledge and the invocation. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, as we approach the 250th birthday of our great nation, we want to pause and give you thanks and just reflect on the first prayer of the president or the first Congress that met, in which they invoked your divine presence and help in forming this great nation. I just pray that your continued blessing would fall on this country as we seek your leading and your guidance. For none of America would be possible without your intervention and your direction. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay. Real meeting.
We would just like to ask for the approval agenda that you add the amendment for G2. So we have another street closure that we'd like to add.
All right. We can do that.
Oh,
So I make a motion to amend the agenda.
I make a motion to amend the agenda, including
G2.
item G2. A second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on. You know, I can't really talk and do this without a pen.
Danny, are we mics on?
Okay, on this item D, is there anyone here for citizen comments? Wind's blowing, so we'll pass on citizen comments since no one's here to make any. Item E, any conflicts of interest that might affect tonight's discussions and agenda? 5 no's on that. Moving on. We have no appointments. We'll seek a motion to approve the amended consent agenda with 2 street closure requests.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Alrighty, Naomi's made the motion. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. This train is rolling down the tracks. There's no unfinished business under H. That brings us to item I. Mr. Micah.
Palmer Marion City Council. This is I1. This is a discussion around the draft resolution related to family structures. You're all fairly familiar with the background. I'm just going to go through a brief history lesson and then we're going to just dive into it. Feel free to stop me at any time, but conversation to family structures has come up many times, not just over the last couple of years, but over the last decade or more. On May 11th, the Planning Commission and the City Council had a joint meeting where they discussed the possibility of having design standards for duplexes for larger developments to ask for rezoning specifically for duplexes. The Wichita Area Village Association spoke on June 15th during the regular City Council meeting, and after presenting their ideas and concerns, staff agreed to meet with them or their representative as soon as possible to see how the design standards draft resolution can be amended to take them into account their concerns. On June 23rd, City staff met with Travis Whistler Homes as a representative of WABA to discuss the changes and ideas introduced by WABA. After meeting with Travis Whistler, City staff drafted a memo outlining the concerns about possible changes, which is attached to Exhibit 1.1A. Design standards would only apply to developments that are asking for rezoning if resolution was adopted. It gives the governing body the ability to waive the provisions of the resolution if it is deemed unreasonable in its application for specific projects. And we're just going to keep moving on. City Council is reviewing and discussing changes to family resolution. Please see the attached memo for reference. I'm going to dive into it. Basically, that memo which you guys got, which the city manager put together, basically outlined some of the concerns that WABA's and WABA's representatives had presented to us when we met with both Ryan Schrack, the deputy manager, and Craig and myself. 8 key items came up. They're up there on the board. You guys got the memo, so you're aware of it. We're going to go through all 8 items. There are recommendations that the city manager had posited to you guys in that email and in that memo, and so I've included them for each item. So we will begin. But number 1, The concern limits garage doors to no more than 50% of the front of the house. That concern came up and saying that that was kind of a structural impossibility given sort of lot layouts.
We
that
call it time out here, don't we?
You go for it.
I'd just like to back up a second.
Sure.
There was a question that I wish I would have asked at the last meeting. I think we all were under the impression that there were members of the Builders Association that maybe were in favor of some of our design standards. And I think that to some degree, the representation that was here the other night didn't maybe necessarily represent all the views of that group of 900 developers. And so I just think that it's just important to note, I think we've had feedback, I know Craig, I think, has had feedback from other developers that are pretty much in favor of what we're doing. So I think we just need to kind of keep that in mind, that maybe just by the representation that was here the other night didn't fully represent the total viewpoints of the whole association. Much like when we have citizens come in with an issue, we get a very narrow view of things. But I wish I would have pushed on that, but you reflect sometimes afterwards. But I do think that's important, that we've had feedback from developers and people that didn't think we were too far off on what we're doing. So,
Mayor, could I further your point?
Sure,
just real
please
quick?
do.
One, just a point of clarification, the WABA was 900 developers, builders, folks from all the trades, not just developers. And secondly, on what you mentioned, I spoke with a member of the development community just a day or two ago, I think it was yesterday, and he agreed basically with what you just said, that he has no problem with the design standards. However, his opinion was he had a problem with the restriction on the percentage of duplexes being minimized to the 40-60 ratio. So we're dealing with a lot of different viewpoints. Some think the design standards are great, but they're concerned about how many duplexes are being allowed. With the circumstance related to these garage doors, this was one that, since we're getting right into that,
sure, no, that's
this was one of the higher level issues that they had brought to our attention just because of the practicality of it. And when we met as a joint group at the Planning Commission, we had a bunch of engineers in the room that night, not so many developers, if you remember, in May. And I asked one of those engineers who's working for the city of Goddard on one of our own projects, what did you think about this specific, I asked him, what do you think about our design standards? Do you see any specific practical concerns? That's always been my biggest sensitivity, is are we creating some regulations that just are an impossibility of working in the field? And this was the one that he brought up. He mentioned that this requirement would make it so the lots would have to be so large that all of the duplexes either have to be 2 stories or very wide, meaning the square footage of the duplex would be a really big duplex. So you're basically limiting it only to the ones that would have the really high rents, because it's going to be a larger structure. And so the standard size lot would not work with this 50% garage requirement. And that one has come out quite frequently as one of the higher concerns while we're talking about this one specifically.
I would say, just doing some of my own research and talking to some people that I worked with, they said the same thing. The garage, the 50% was kind of a red flag for them. So,
What percentage do these garages take up currently?
I couldn't answer that question, I'm not sure.
I don't know the answer to that.
Really quick before we get into the garage, I feel like we're going right into it, and I just wanted to say a few things that's been really on my mind, and I've tried to really pray about it for a lot, just for future reference for all of our builders, and if we have conversations like this going forward. I think it's really important for people to understand that if they want to be able to come into this space, right, and ask us to, you know, work with them, that they have to come in a lot more respectfully than what they came
Absolutely
in
agree.
last time. Like, we're always very respectful to our community, even, you know, even when someone's upset with us or not happy, like part of being able to work with somebody and make, you know, decisions together and work as a team, is respect. And I really feel like they kind of rolled in and they weren't very respectful to us. I feel like there was some, like, almost threats and things going on. So I would just say, like, this is not, I just ask that if you're listening and you're out there, you know, that, you know, you're gonna give back the same energy that you give us, right? And I just wanna say, like, come in and let's be willing to work together. You know, don't say things like, well, where are you spending your money? Cause I didn't really like that comment. And cause I feel if anybody wants to know how we're spending our money, we're the most transparent that we've ever been. You know, they can look online, they can go to the budget, they can go up to Brooke, you know, and make an appointment with her. And there are just some things that were said that I thought was really inappropriate, so.
Councilwoman, I appreciate that, and you and I talked about this a bit offline, and I agree with your sentiment, and I just want to be careful that we don't let one bad apple spoil the bunch as far as the way you perceive that conversation, because as Mayor said, there's 900 people, builders, developers, a part of all the trades. We had a handful in the room, and I think there was one person who had an interaction that you didn't appreciate, so I don't want to paint them with a broad brush, if you will.
I don't wanna do that either, and I'm not. I just think, like, going forward, it's a good thing to just let kind of everybody know, because he's also not the first one that, you know, has told us, like, you know, we need to get in line and things. Like, there's no getting in line. We're gonna do what's best for our community and what we feel is in our heart, and, you know, what we hear from the people in this community that they want. And that's the only thing that's guiding us besides, you know, Jesus. So,
Amen.
that's all I'm gonna say about that.
It's important to know that we come in here and we have a job to do, and we understand that, but we're also still human, and so it's not a great feeling to come in and feel like maybe we're being bullied. And I think we want to work with everybody, and I think that listening to our community is very important. I think we've been very open and honest about that as this council just in our first 6 months here. So I think it's really important that we hear a little more from some of the other people who maybe did not have the opportunity to speak as much that night. So I want to make sure that we're being mindful and that they understand that we can, you know, come to the middle ground on some things, but not everything. So
That's all I need.
thank you for
That's all I
saying
had to
that.
say. But I'd love to talk about politics.
Well, that really all comes under the heading of a lot of things I try to say from this position is, you know, we're gonna do things the right way and do the right things. And that's our intent, and we have Goddard's best interest at heart. We're not perfect, but we are, I think as a group, collectively, trying to do the right things and doing the right way. As long as we're doing that, I think at least we have a bit of integrity to stand on. And that's, I mean, we paused our decision, we invited them to come in, so I think that's a sign of our willingness to listen and to try to do the right thing, so.
I will just leave it with, when I first started council and you guys got me this iPad, I put scripture on my home screen because I wanted something to reflect on each time I was sitting up here, each time I was working on these things. And so I think it's worth sharing, and I hope that the community is listening and our developers are listening. It's Ephesians 6:7, and it says, serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people. I think it's really important that we not only do the right thing always to the best of our abilities, but we know we can go home and we can lay our heads down at night and rest peacefully knowing that there are thousands of people in this community who rely on us to make the right decisions. So
Thanks for sharing.
okay, now garage doors.
Garage doors.
What is the standard size of the garage doors that they're talking about? Because our limitations are no more than 50% of the front of the home. So what's the garage door size now?
Yeah, I can.
60 or 70%?
I can tell you, I think with single family, obviously it takes up a lot. Usually I'm thinking with a garage on a duplex especially, you're gonna have 2 cars, so, you know, so you're gonna have 4. Basically 2 doors that can have 4 cars on each side, 2 cars on each side, but, you know, 4 cars in total. And so obviously that eats up a lot of space on the front of the building. I think of, like, if I was looking at a regular single family, like St. Andrews and whatnot, you're gonna have a single family detached house that's got a garage, it's got 2 cars in it, and then if you pay maybe a little extra, you get that 3rd car. That's probably quite a bit more than 50%, especially if you have a 3rd car garage on a single family. I couldn't tell you as a percentage wise how much traditionally it eats up. Obviously if you go up the street to the Cedar Edition, that's probably like 95% of the front, if not more, and so it's quite a bit. Bridger Maple, I would say, I don't know, closer to 70%, it's quite a bit.
I'd say it'd be 66 to 75% or so. The trouble in the calculation, I think, and I even alluded to it here, is that are you saying 50% of just the level frontal area, or are you including any gables or softening and anything above kind of the bottom of the roof line? So if you add that, like if you have gables facing forward and that can add to the frontal area, then you don't need it helps offset the garage door when it comes to area of the front of the house. But
As
I
a
mean,
percentage of the total?
right.
Yeah.
And I think they've even mentioned that in
It
one
doesn't
of these.
define it, we just say 50%, but I do think that if I was doing the calculation, I would do facade
Yeah,
total.
total facade
Total
area,
facade
and that'll
area.
give you some leeway there.
Yeah, but then of course, those gabled roofs would have to be pretty peaked to offset it more, because at 50% you're talking, or less, that's a lot of additional space to take into account.
Right, I mean,
Unless you go 2 stories as mentioned.
Something you could do, and I don't know what the smallest lot width could be, but I know like a typical house is maybe 40 feet wide, and your garage door is typically 16 to 18 feet wide for a 2-car garage, so you're quickly approaching just 50% linearly, looking across the whole one vertically. So
That was one of the arguments we heard, was that this wouldn't even pass the muster for most of the single family homes in your community.
right.
So I think what we're trying to avoid, I mean, this is my perception, is that we're trying to avoid what's happening on the end of Main Street with every single entrance is the garage there, and then there's doors on the side of the house. There's no windows to speak of, like it looks terrible. And I don't know what the fix is for that, other than maybe multiple styles, like 6. That we have asked for. But I think that's really the thing, is that we don't want the whole front facing of these buildings to be the garage
Right.
approach. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think the theme I saw when reviewing a lot of these concerns is, if we say try to compromise on all of them to the extent that this is going to, we are basically just allowing exactly what they've been
We
building.
might as well just not even
Yeah,
have this
because
conversation.
what he showed for the 4 different styles, I believe,
Yeah.
would fit if we were to compromise on all of these, those would then fit. And it kind of, the first part of this garage door piece says basically it would cause them to redesign otherwise marketable plans. So to me, if we don't stand some ground here, they're just gonna copy paste marketable plans over and over again, so every neighborhood's gonna look the same.
So,
That's the way I kinda see it.
I would assume you guys did the research on this, and I was just kind of looking up a little bit because this is a little out of my realm of getting into the weeds per se. But in Wichita, the Wichita Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Department sets the 50% restriction. Derby also does this. So it's more like the zoning, which right now we follow MABCD, but since MABCD doesn't have this in place, correct? Wichita's,
You use the word
Planning
zoning, take
department.
that out and restate what you just mentioned.
so I'm just kind of spit reading here.
Okay.
Basically, it mentions like it undergoes a plan review. They look at the zoning administrators review the site footprint. So the first thing they do is they check the facade and setback. Fine, for whatever they require. And then it says then it goes over to the Metropolitan Area Planning Department, and they enforce the 50%. So is that not something we follow? Maybe this is a silly question, this is where I don't quite understand Goddard versus the Wichita. We don't follow that currently because MAPC themselves don't enforce that because they just give the permits. This is the Wichita Sedgwick County Planning Department. So
Yeah, so I can talk
we
about that.
right now are not following the 50%.
No, we don't have any design
But they
standards.
are.
Yeah, they've adopted the 50% design standards for a specific area in Wichita.
Okay, that's what I.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you will see that, you'll go into Wichita and be like, oh, these garages are 50% because it's in a specific geographic area that they defined. If you leave that geographic area, there's other areas where you're like, that's clearly more than 50%.
Okay.
And that's because they've left that area. That was something actually when we met with, sorry, Craig wasn't there, I think Ryan, it was me and Ryan, we met with Wava and Mr. York and some others, and they had mentioned that Wichita actually had these 50% design standards like we were considering adopting. So I went and did the research kind of like you did and said, well, is this, for the whole city or is it, and it was for a defined area. They said that in a core area of Wichita, they want that 50%. It was adopted as policy. And as you're saying, basically, for us, Wichita aside, but for us, what we would do is somebody would submit a building permit to us. And if we had adopted this resolution and that resolution was in play for a new development, I would look at it and be like, I need facade renderings and I need calculations, because that calculation is gonna have to help me determine if these garages are greater than 50% or not. And then I would say, yep, these meet these standards that we've adopted, and here's your building permit. Now, for MABCD, that's for permitting. MAPD's for planning, and so they'll probably do the planning review, say this meets the setbacks and the design standards, now let's hand it off to permitting.
Right.
All of that falls under me anyway, so it's
The
pretty easy.
engineers know anyways,
I can
yeah.
just look at it and go, yep, this works, and I talk to myself and say, yeah, I can issue a permit, so it's pretty easy on my end. But for them, they have two separate departments, so.
By the way,
So-
starting today, it says July 1 was the day, which moving forward,
Yeah.
we are doing all inspections for new building permits.
Which is amazing.
So with regard to the specific areas, in those specific areas, is this adopted for single-family homes or for duplex development?
It was for duplexes. So
Okay.
it was a duplex policy that Wichita had adopted. And then, because I noticed that, and then I mentioned that to Craig and Ryan when we were talking about this, they wanted to see it too, because Derby had adopted a lot of what Wichita had already adopted. And so we were like, oh, this kind of seems like a trickle-down thing more than anything else. Like, this policy started in Wichita, and then it went to Derby, and Derby, I think, already adopted it. And then we're considering adopting portions of it, with maybe modifications. And then Mays is kind of waiting for us to see what we do, and then maybe they would adopt portions of it, so it's just kind of interesting. But yeah, ultimately it started in Wichita. I think it was adopted back in 2015, 2016, so it's been around for a while.
But like you've said, and you've done more research on this, they did it for specific
A specific area.
areas,
Mhm.
so
There's a map on it that shows.
is there a world in which, I feel like we've already allowed so many that it's like, that's so hard, but they talk about like protective overlays or like specific subdivision regulations, like, I don't wanna take this away, I mean, it sounds like Derby's leaning towards this as well, I think.
Derby's adopted it.
Yeah, and we have Maze in some other areas, was it Maze? I don't wanna speak out of turn, that is kind of waiting on our lead as well. So, and I don't want to sound catty about this, but one of the things was, don't call us, we won't build here, but it sounds like this is gonna be something that trickles everywhere, so
Everybody's doing.
do we want to back down this? Is there a number in your head that would be acceptable that's not 50%? Maybe this is kind of like the big one, maybe we keep going and we circle back to this after we decide the rest, like what do we think?
My perspective is that we already have currently being built and being built.
Quite a few.
This,
military housing.
all of their
Cookie cutter?
things all
Yeah.
of their compromises, that's already being built in our community. I think going forward, we could, stick with our guns here on the things that we've set in place, and my point in all of this is that we haven't had the standard, and now we are. And even though there's pushback, there's always gonna be pushback when you're trying to do the right thing. And we are really trying to do the right thing for our community in terms of building community, building places that people wanna come and live and work and play, all of those things. I think that 50% is not unreasonable. I think it's unreasonable for the bottom line of the developers.
Can you remind me what our lot width is, like standard?
So, that's a good question, and, Councilmember Durr brought that up, but traditionally, we didn't go below 60. For a long time, we didn't go below 60 as a width. We have what's called urban standards, and so it's like between 75 on the width and 100 and 120 feet on the depth, and then it goes up to like 80. We've shrunk that with our R1 all the way down to 40 now, so you can do 40 by 100 as a minimum on R1. But historically, the vast majority of Goddard is 75 by 100, vast majority. With the exception of traditional Goddard, which is south of 54 north of Santa Fe, those ones that were platted pre-World War II, and they have 25 by 100 and 40 by 100.
So realistically, how many of these twin homes are going on these smaller?
Twin homes? Oh, I mean, typically you're going to see on a duplex lot, it's going to be at least 70 feet because they have to fit duplex.
Right, right.
So it's going to be at least 70 feet or up to 75, 80 feet on a duplex for a duplex lot. That's the minimum width usually.
They're probably going to be building up vertically if they're going to use those smaller lot widths that we now.
Which at the end of the day, then they're following the standard anyway, so this is probably the one board. Theoretically, excuse me.
If they add another story, that's one of 6 designs.
So I'm just wondering if we say anything below our standard 70, we maybe don't enforce the 50%? Because they would have to build up anyways.
She's talking about lot widths.
Lot width.
Yeah, the 40
You mean
foot
if the lot
lot.
gets smaller since
Right.
they can't accommodate the 50% of the garage, then that provision of that resolution would be.
Because they'd be building up anyways.
You guys could waive it, either in part or in whole. Ryan Peck is here, so the way it was drafted, and it hasn't been adopted yet, obviously, but on July 6th, if it is adopted, any part of that resolution can be waived in part or in whole if you have somebody asking for a rezoning. And maybe that developer comes before you guys and says, hey, for splitting specials and being able to make this economically viable, I would like my lots to be 50 by 100. And I want my R2 zoning, but I can't accommodate the 50% of the garage, but I can accommodate the 30% wainscoting, and the 6 design standards, and maybe that provision of the resolution is what you waive in that particular case. It can be on a case by
But
case.
it requires them to come in front of us and explain why they're
Yes,
doing it.
I think this is really important to know. If a developer has a product that they really like and it works well and it's high quality, we can go out and visit it in another community or something, and it does not fit these, because I think there's a couple in town that we like that definitely would not be legal with this. You guys have the option to either waive it, as Micah said, or you can allow them to submit a planned unit development, a PUD, and at that point you guys can say, yeah, this is really nice, we don't care that they're all the same color, they're really high quality, so we're going to allow you to do that. I mean, I can name 2 developments right now, maybe 3 that I've heard council members share that they may be partial to that wouldn't be allowed in this, but since it's a higher quality construction and you guys may be able to go see them in the field, if someone wanted to do that product here, you could either waive this or they could submit a PUD application.
I want to be very careful because I feel like that's also a slippery slope. I like that we have the ability to do that, and it's not so black and white that maybe there are some designs that don't fit whatever we put into place that are still really great and could be really great here, but I just want to be really careful because that's a slippery slope of what we're approving, who we're approving it for.
I mean, we would only approve it if we would vote.
Yeah,
right.
We would
I
vote,
mean,
and if we don't like it.
So the example here is Schellenberg came to us after we had already said, do not bring any more duplexes to us. Their first guy came and presented the product. I said to him, it looks like a nice product, we just don't want duplexes here.
Right.
And then that builder came and said, will you come and look at our product? And we did do that. And I said, you have one that's 20 years old, I want to go look at that. So when I went to look at that, I saw that the quality was still there, dated, but still there and still very good. So, and that coupled with the information that Amanda brought with our senior community, all of those things are what changed my opinion about that particular development. So, although we didn't.
In a clubhouse, and a little pool.
They had amenities, they had all this. So what I'm saying is, if we set the
standards,
standards, and then someone comes, a reputable developer comes and says, we want to do it this way, I think that's how it works. I think
Mhm.
that's the collaboration. I think that's the compromise.
Yep.
I think we set the standard and say this is what it is, and then, you know, you can come and speak to us about something different. We're not unreasonable, but I think initially, we haven't had the standard. So we now
We have to do something.
If you think you have a product that's better than our standard, but our standard wouldn't allow for it because of these technicalities, show it to us.
Bring it to
There's a
us.
project in Park City right now, they're selling each unit for $450,000 to $500,000. Everything is aftermarket, but it's a 5-plex with, it's all the same color, but it's absolutely gorgeous project. It wouldn't fit in this. In that circumstance, you guys would have the chance to go look at it in another community and say, okay, well, this doesn't fit. It's obviously exceeding from a value perspective and a quality perspective. So you could either waive this or just have them submit a PUD to you guys.
I think that's a good plan. Like, I like having a standard, and I like that if they have something that's better, they know us at this point. But I think if we hold to the standard and then they come show us something better, like we're willing to you know, see what they have to offer. So I kind of think that's the way to go. That's just one person.
I just think by putting together the standard, we will attract a different kind of developer than we've been attracting.
Which is some of our
And
goals.
that
yeah.
is the point.
Well, and if our lots are a minimum of 70 foot wide, I mean, doesn't that make, theoretically,
Minimum's 40 for 2-family, I believe.
It used to be 75.
Yeah.
right, but for the most part, you're saying we still kind of stay up higher, correct?
For a duplex, you just have to, because the thing is, even though the minimum's 40 by 100, if you're saying I'm gonna do a duplex, you're gonna plat it, because that's the minimum, you're gonna plat it as more
So-
for a duplex.
Theoretically, for a lot of designs, wouldn't this be null and void anyways? Because most duplexes are the standard 2-car garage, and that width is
20 feet. maybe.
20 feet, 23 feet.
What do you mean, what's the
Like, we wouldn't touch the 50% anyways.
no?
I'm saying we put it in place, but
Oh,
this
no,
is
no,
being made
no.
to be
We're
a,
doing, the garages would be, the numerator for the garage is gonna be the garage width, and then the denominator is gonna be the facade of the house, not the lot.
Right, yeah, the lot doesn't.
Yeah, and the lot doesn't factor into the percentage for the 50%. The lot, the denominator is gonna be the facade total coverage of the house, the front of the house, not the width of the lot.
which is where it gets, okay.
Yeah, so sorry about that, that's our fault, we should have explained that better. That when we're doing this calculation for 50%, we're saying the garage is the numerator and the facade, the total facade is the denominator, that's our division there. So, we're not taking into account the lot at all.
But area wise,
Yeah, it's from.
Correct.
we're really looking at area,
Yeah.
not width.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, so total area of the garage
I
is.
think
is over.
a clarification in the actual item D that calls it out might be to say frontal area of the home. maybe
Yeah,
not.
we can craft that
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
that's.
Because that way if there's space above the garage,
You can
Count
add
that.
Then
that.
that
Total
counts.
area, exactly, that's right,
Yep.
sorry, we need to clarify that, that's on me, I think.
So, to get off that center a little bit on this 50% thing, I think if we could come maybe up with a compromise or we could stick our ground, but I think if we don't compromise on a lot of the other things, it can still force a way to have more than just a garage facing the front, because they bring up the windows, there's talks of doors and porches, so I think what we're trying to get away from is two-car garages and nothing else that you can see, right? Like,
Yes.
like, it looks like a storage unit from the front.
terrible.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid that. I think
Yes,
there's other things in here that can help
I agree.
drive to have,
Like maybe if we start by looking at some of the
Features,
other things
yeah.
and
Yes, and I, after having this conversation, if somebody submits to me a facade that looks like Cedar Edition up the street, I'm just gonna say no, based on what we're discussing here today.
right, right.
Even if there was even with the calculation in it and everything else, we just simply say, this garage is the preponderance of the whole building and it's a shotgun style, and that's a no, based on my feedback that I'm getting from council. And that's easy enough to reject, based on what we've already approved in the past, and so I can kind of just use common sense in that particular case to say, I don't think people are gonna like to look at this based on council's feedback, so we'll reject that design.
I tend to think if you can include all frontal area, including the gables, like any facade and
Yes.
everything, 50% is achievable.
So
'Cause
we're
I mean-
clear on our verbiage and.
Yeah, cause if the garage door has a gable with a standard pitch above it, that gable should be
Quite a
nearly
bit.
a quarter of the area of the garage door, if you think of a triangle.
Yeah, but
Plus
it's.
any other frontal area that's non-garage,
Mhm.
if you can get there, I would think, with a.
I still
Yeah,
think we
with
should
a
push
store.
it 60% though, 65%.
I think
Even with the gabled roof.
60 would give a lot more room to the builders, but then I would just say that we need to make sure we have other mechanisms in here like
Yeah,
windows, porches, other features that can make sure that,
that equals that.
yeah, that you can't do creative math and get to 60 with some like modern, slant roof, really high,
Right, yeah,
Right.
sure.
a lot of siding, just, I think 60 seems reasonable too, but, yeah, I just wanted to get that out, I guess.
Would you guys be okay if we kind of looked at some of these other things and?
I want to mention one more thing, Councilwoman. We are requiring varied roof lines, porches, so I think that's going to break some of this up too. To keep it from being garage after garage after garage all the way through.
I do think mathematically though, based on what Councilman Durham and others have been discussing, that 50 is a hard mark, just because when I'm looking at a house, just kind of empirically, if you're staring at a house face on and you're calculating everything with the facade, and just empirically you look at the garage, it's very easy to see that garage is being greater than 50% of the facade, even with the gables and the roof and the door, the windows and everything else. It's very easy. Even on single family houses, that is clearly greater than 50% of the facade of the house, unless you have a 2-story house or a
Pretty
very
much.
wide house.
Yeah, you have to be 2-story or
Or
very
your-
wide.
I do think that if there was some
Yeah.
wiggle room, since that seems the intent is to prevent what we see in the street, we can use some sort of intuitive understanding based on that, say we're gonna reject certain standards that we see. But I do think that the 50% is a hard mark, just generally speaking, but.
So you're saying that most of those terrible designs that we see are about 75?
They're probably like 90.
Oh, so
I'd
going
say
down to
80 to
60
90.
is still,
Yeah.
is still like a really big difference.
60 is a nice compromise then?
It's
I think so.
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's
relative,
fair.
yeah.
And
Especially,
anything above 60, they can come to us.
Well, they can.
They can, yeah, let's say that they were at 65% or 62%, what if it was close enough? I would say that you would need to present yourself to the city council and ask for.
Yeah, there's gotta be a reason.
So
Yeah,
we're going from 95 to 60,
well, that
kind
is.
of meaning them
up
not
the
even
street's
in the
pretty
middle,
straight,
but
yeah.
more in the middle.
60%.
Are we, Corey?
59 and a half.
I'm in favor of 60, and/or I'll say it again, I do also like the compromise of exceptions if there are recesses behind facades, porches, or there's room in there. I don't know if we wanna go down that road, but that's another option.
Do you
For-
understand what he's saying about the recessed facade?
Yes.
Yeah, for
I
example,
would
the
agree with
ones
that.
on
It's more
Maple
like-
where their porches are out further than the garage.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the garages are kinda set back.
I would agree with that.
So it's not the first thing you see is not the garage, the first thing you
Right.
see is their porch.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's just, it creates
Preferable.
depth
right.
and contrast, where if it's just
Garage is
it's
30
two
feet back from
garages,
the road, it's
two
a little
garages
garage.
with a little
Yeah.
4-foot fence that's hiding where the gas lines are.
Mm-hmm.
The doors are on the sides, that's 100% basically in my mind.
So to further develop this thought, just so staff has clear direction, 60%, we'll add some language in there to make it clear that includes the total frontage in the calculation. The garage, limitation does not apply in the case where there is a recessed facade such as an entry court or a breezeway or a common area in front of the structure.
I think that's
Some-
fair.
Something like that.
Basically what that means is the garage is not the closest thing to the room.
Mhm.
I mean,
I understand that,
Anything to me where it's not cookie cutter. I keep going back to cookie cutter, but it's not a box.
But keep in mind, we're requiring a different plan every lot.
Right, this gives them flexibility for the one plan that they struggle to have a sixth version that can get
Yeah.
60%. They
So
can
maybe
recess
the
it.
garages sit back further on one of those, but then they don't max the 50 or go past the 50 on another.
Yeah, so basically, you're saying 60% or to allow exceptions for, if the garage is recessed. Like they have to do one or the other.
Yeah.
It gives them the ability to also be flexible with their designs.
And I
in
don't,
that way.
I don't know the answer to this question, but I just like, how much does it I mean, we need to limit them, that's the point. But how much does it limit the design standard by jumping down to that 60? So I think if we think about the fact that we are gonna require different variations, that giving them that little bit of wiggle room to do something different and not have to follow the 60%, maybe to me as a compromise, I think it's meeting them in the middle.
Yeah.
Why don't we just go with 60 for now and see if we can get the next one done in less than 40 minutes. Move on to number 2.
So we're not gonna allow for the.
I'm gonna put that language in there based on what I've heard, and you guys can throw it out on the 6th if you want.
Do you need a specific distance, or do you
I
just
think
need
I-
to be significantly?
I think I know
Yeah,
enough to be
5
able to put it in a way you guys will like. Because we already have the language in there that talks about requiring a breezeway, a common area, a recessed area, sort of thing. So I think we just would put that in there as an exception to the 50% minimum if you have one of those. Because in that scenario, the garage is not going to be able to be front loaded. So, but if you're good at thinking of stuff that I didn't catch. So if you think of something between now and tomorrow, let me know.
Okay,
We good for, I mean, now?
60
like it.
fair.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Number 2.
Go back in. Thank you. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward in terms of purple. What they're asking for is to exceed 40% for the development as a whole. I believe number 3, Daniel, for one. Yeah, 3 and 2 are similar. 3, I believe, is speaking about each individual phase, because we're saying you can't do more than 40% of the phase. 2 is about 40% for the whole development. That's my general understanding. Is that correct?
Did Trails in front load their
They did.
duplexes?
That's
Oh,
how
yeah.
a lot of developments do them.
Every
for-
development
yeah.
front loads their duplexes.
And so, I mean,
My problem is that, while I think that they'll always get it done because they're financially invested,
Of course.
I don't wanna see them front load all their duplexes and then wait 4 years to do the rest, and so I think that that's why we.
I doubt that wait 4 years. You have to remember that specials are in play.
I was gonna say, they'll have to.
And what's called holding costs, and so you mean, if you buy 80 acres, you have to pay taxes on 80 acres. And so when you plat it, it becomes even more valuable, so you're paying even more taxes. And so as you are developing, you really wanna offset them as fast as possible. Specials are by phase, so you're gonna go phase by phase by phase. But we run into this a lot, where you will have different types of developers trying different ways, and so you'll have, for example, Arbor Creek. Arbor Creek went really fast, but that's because rates were low, like 3%. As soon as they went above 6%, this last phase of Arbor Creek went really, really slow. In fact, I think in phase 4 of Arbor Creek and phase 3 right now, they've barely sold any lots. So he's gotta eat all those specials. And so that's painful for him, that's a carrying cost.
But it's going
That's a
to
risk.
phase, so if they break this up by phase and we don't limit per phase,
It's still gonna be the 40-60 ratio, but they could build all the duplexes first. I do think that this could be an issue depending on the land. You gotta consider the different engineering elements, and some of the engineers that we talked to said, yeah, this could be a problem. Think about it, if you can't do a phase where you've got the duplexes for over here on one side of the track and the single family homes over here. It just doesn't make sense for all the public infrastructure perspective. Is it possible, such as the Trails End example, to where maybe you can do a couple clusters, but think about the environment they built in, where we had a hot market. They built that whole project out in
That's
it'll be
not
4
common.
years.
yeah.
And they came back and asked us to let them do duplexes, and
More
we said
duplexes,
no.
yeah.
You did say no. Now, the covenant will carry with the ground. So let's say developer A buys this and they tell us, yeah, we're gonna, while we need to front load the duplexes for whatever engineering or financing reason, we will make sure we come back and do the single family on the other 60%, but they don't do it for whatever reason, they're gonna sell that to somebody else and the covenant is still there. You're gonna have a financial reputation with your lender, your reputation with the city, as Micah said, carrying costs, special assessments, letters of credit, all of these organic reasons that are gonna motivate them to fulfill the development. It's just whether or not are we patient enough to, maybe it takes a couple more years or a different builder to do it. The covenant stays with the land.
So I brought up a concern with this too, I think, when we were with the planning commission, that my concern with making them meet 40% with every phase, and maybe it doesn't apply in all cases, but depending on where the land is structured and where they can put the entrance roads and such, it might keep them from being able to visually separate or I don't know, most efficiently lay out where the duplexes in the neighborhood go versus where single family. Similar to Cloverleaf, where a lot of them are nicely separated from the actual development. If they had to do one of those phases before the other, maybe they couldn't have gotten the 40%. That's the only real concern I see.
We heard that comment too.
I think it's reasonable to, this is their business model. They are going to front load the duplexes and, get the revenue from that. I still do not want to go any more than 60-40.
Because when you
I
build,
mean,
when you
We've
build,
been fighting really hard for 2.5 years to keep this ratio.
And not to mention with the smaller lots for single family homes, they can
Yes.
meet the ratio
Correct.
easier.
because when you build 40 duplexes out of 100,
Right.
you're actually
ADU.
building 80
80
living
doors.
units
Yeah.
against then the 60. And that mix, compared to where we were, I can't remember all those numbers, but historically, I think at one time before duplexes became an issue, we had about 1,300 single-family homes and maybe 150 duplexes or something.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm trying to ballpark it,
That's
so
right.
don't hold me to 0.0.
There's no tests.
But so that,
We can probably get the numbers.
yeah,
I've emailed them before.
yeah, but that was last week. But the point is that there's gonna be some integrity in terms of we maintain
Yes.
a community, and in the base of our community has historically been single-family homes. Now, the real test of this whole thing is that this trails in, builds out that last phase, and they've got a street in there with smaller lots, and single-family homes, and we've got Liberty homes being built, smaller homes. The market, the market's gonna drive this to some degree, and we've got some developers saying that the duplex craze, might be duplexes are to the point, man, they're a tipping point, they're almost overbuilt. So maybe 5 years from now, we won't have a lot of requests for duplexes, but I'd be more inclined to make that ratio 30-70.
I agree.
I mean, and then that's a hard thing too, but,
We have fought hard for 60-40. I do not want to go above that at all.
I don't think that's even, not for me anyways, that's not even a question. My question was just being careful of, I hear that, I agree, like the phases, and we wanna make sure, I think it's really nice, when you pay a lot for a home, you wanna be in the back of that development, right? Like, not everybody wants to be near those duplexes, but I just wanna be mindful that we're not opening the opportunity to sit on phases for longer, but also stating that I think some of the other things that we're putting in place, hopefully, like you said, will drive in some new developers that are a little more eager to do some of those things.
I think our community has intangibles that we can be confident that a development's gonna get finished. We have never had someone walk away from one, ever. I mean,
We had one.
Well, that addition still got built out. It's still built.
No mention.
So,
Yeah.
I just don't think, I think because of the factors surrounding these, it's just extremely unlikely that we'd have to worry about someone building on the duplexes.
Well, I'm fine on the
phasing.
phasing, but I would 100% agree, I mean, I would not be willing to give a yes vote to anything that was over 40%.
So,
I agree, 60.
this one is the 60-40 for the whole development, and then this one is,
This one.
this one Is by, okay, this one's by phase. So I think that for what we're hearing, this one, you wanna stand firm at 60/40. This one, you're willing to let them front load the duplexes and continue with that.
Well,
Well, I think-
not to get off there, but what does 70/30 look like?
I know, that would be awesome.
Are we shooting for
I don't know
the
that,
stars?
I don't know that it
Or 90/10?
is the right thing to go back from where we have been discussing, but that's ultimately your prerogative.
Maybe baby steps, we start with 60/40 and
Well, we've gone 60/40 for the last 2.5 years, basically. That's a standard that we grew. When Trails End started at 60/40, then they came back and we said, no. I think we pretty well drew a line in the sand then that 60/40 was as far as we wanna go. They could always come in and build a 70/30 and be glad.
Yeah,
I mean, this is just the high end, and I'm thinking if the market does shift,
that will happen.
They'll want to do that.
the market will lead them to
Exactly.
go below that, but I think this, you don't wanna have a count of 15,000 and there's, 3,000 duplexes and 2,000 single family homes. Or, I mean, in terms of residents. So,
I think there's just also a lot to be said about consistency, and I think that we have been consistent over the last 2.5 years about what we are looking for. And I think if we stay with the 60/40 at this point, and we can, if we need to later, but I just think that consistency is really valuable, and it keeps us from maybe appearing volatile or unreasonable. We are trying to work with the market that we have, but we are also trying to maintain a strong community feel.
and even with, Trails End is really a great example. They kind of front loaded the duplexes to some degree, but they've intermingled single family housing. It's a good mix. They put the amenities there, the sidewalks and things, the trees, all those things we talked about, they've done. And, I don't think that, they're not walking away from the second phase. I don't think that we were unreasonable. And the things that we've asked for here, the majority, that's what we've already done.
Yeah.
So I just have a hard time, I might back away from, not the trees being planted, but, you can plant the trees after we give you your certificate of occupancy if it's December and it's 3 foot of snow on the ground, but.
We've got an idea for that.
Well, just be a person of your word and come back in March or April when it needs to be done and take care of it. Cause I think if you look out there at Trails End, there's a few of those things that they didn't plant those trees and they got their certificate of occupancy and they come back in and they've done what they said they were gonna do. And so, I think that it's a good example of kind of the standard that we set. It's not perfect, but, it's not unreasonable. Place filled up.
So are we fair to say that we are good with taking it off of the phases, but we're not going above 40% on the
I think that's probably.
Right.
Okay, that's what I got here.
That's not too down.
Yeah, we're at number 4, trees, we just passed that.
units.
Okay, now we're on the trees, and there's one thing that was thrown out, that was a possibility, is having a tree stipend, they could pay a fee, or maybe it's recorded in the covenants, HOA covenants instead. We're looking for just some feedback, I suppose. Yeah, because you're right, December, foot of snow.
I don't have confidence that an HOA is gonna, I live in one, that they're gonna mandate the trees. I feel like if a developer comes to us to certify their home and they say, we can't plant the tree because it's January and there's 8 inches of snow on the ground. Okay, well, here's the cost for these 2 trees. You write us a check and we'll take care of it in the spring.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's good.
I like that.
Easy.
Well, we'll have to paper that up to some degree, but I don't think it'll be that complicated.
Yeah, because we have to be able to step on the private property and install the trees, or we're planting trees in the right of way.
Most of them are in the right of way anyway, because they put it around the utility boxes.
In St. Andrews, we require all of, the HOA in St. Andrews and Spring Hill does the trees, and as the mayor was saying, the Trails End, those are all enforced by HOA covenants that you have to have 2 trees and they plant them on private property. There's been occasion where they planted them in the right of way, and I've actually pushed back aggressively on some people, but
I see.
the previous city administrator told me to step back, so I did. So I allow people to plant trees in right of ways.
So you're saying that you
Not
don't think that the HOAs will
I don't trust them to enforce those things, I mean.
but they are in St. Andrews and they are in other other?
They do have
communities?
requirements in St.
They
Andrews.
have requirements, but I
Are they
wouldn't say
following
they
it?
enforce them.
Oh, okay.
It's
Some of
gonna
them,
be, it's
yeah.
gonna be case by case on what matters most to the sitting board at the time. They may have rules on the books that no longer fit the spirit of the law, or there's a
Okay.
physical reason why it can't be done. I mean, I'd rather just get it taken care of.
Okay.
But the other question I have, and we had talked about this over lunch, is I don't think we need a list of trees. We know what an invasive tree
Yeah.
looks like,
Just
so
look at any cotton tree.
if those start popping up, we'll,
There's one in my front yard.
No
take
cotton, no
care of
cotton
it.
trees.
Yeah, I think we could find, as Craig mentioned, sort of an average for 2 trees and say, well, it's now November,
Skip the peach tree.
so
I said
No
skip
fruit
the
trees?
peach tree.
peach tree, yeah. Yeah, here's an average, so in lieu of planting trees, you can write us a check, we'll plant the trees. I guess we'll have public works or somebody do that.
yep. Or the,
Yeah.
yeah, landscape.
But legally going on private property, how does that? Can there be something contingent
Well-
in the seller agreement, like can that?
Too complicated.
Like I said, it can go on city easements.
No, the
Well,
right of way.
but what's the
right of way.
point of putting this on there if you can't?
So, yeah.
Yes, but.
There's a technical aspect here, and that's the idea that trees that are in the right of way are dealt with differently in city code versus trees that are on private property. Because a tree that's on private property, if it dies, you can cut it with no repercussions. If there's a tree that dies in the city right of way, then we say that we will remove it. Property owners are responsible for trees in the right of way. But at the point where you actually have to remove the tree, they have to ask us permission, or we can do it ourselves. Now, if you have a tree,
So
it's,
then we incur costs.
yes, there's potential for us to incur costs if it's in the city right of way. There's just different aspects of how that falls under city code.
Or adding
The
a
other
list of
option-
100 things that have to be done, that
Yeah.
Public Works is working hard at.
I'll tell you, most older neighborhoods, all of the trees are, you go in older neighborhoods and the trees are all on city property, like between the road, like College Hill or any of those, the trees are
Yes.
right next to the road.
Okay.
Which
Older
is a
green,
maintenance-
older
it's a
green
maintenance
neighborhoods that are in the
problem.
right of way.
Yeah.
But if you go up St. Andrews, all the trees are past the sidewalk. That sidewalk is the delineation mark. So once you leave the sidewalk and you step on grass, you're on private property. You'll notice all the trees that St. Andrews requires is on private property. In older neighborhoods, especially gridded neighborhoods, they're lining the right of way. And it's really pretty either way.
We lost a planning commissioner because of the longevity of our last tree debate, so maybe another option, sorry to bring up a sore subject, but another option could be, if it's within this 90-day span, we just waive the requirement. We're still gonna have a lot of trees, and I can promise you, no builder that's trying to sell a house is gonna delay getting it occupied to try to fall into a window, so he doesn't have to spend.
I just don't wanna add
trees.
more on either, I mean, we're talking about them paying us and us just doing it anyways, but then we're expecting the
Adding to
Public
the
Works,
workload of
yeah,
Public Works.
yeah.
We could hire it out, I mean, there's a lot of firms out there that plant trees.
But is that cost being put back on the builder?
Whatever the cost would be, we would make sure we're made whole.
That's what, yeah, the builder pays for it. That's what this is
The
saying.
tree, but are they gonna pay for the cost
The
of the
labor
hire?
cost? We can
I mean,
consider that.
80 to 100 years from now, it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, I would say that they would have to pay for the cost
We
of
saw
the
the
tree.
tree.
But
as
putting
well
it in
as
is our
their cost.
problem, and if we're hiring it out, or even not hiring it out, there's still cost incurred there,
But
so
we put both on the cost.
that's what I'm saying, if we're
The
gonna do it,
developer
we
is
wanna
gonna
make sure.
pass that savings on to whoever purchases their house. They're going to recover that cost. So we can have them pay for the tree and the labor to have it done.
Right,
So.
I just wanna make sure that verbiage is in there, whatever your cost is,
Total cost.
we're not
including
eating
labor.
any more, and we're not adding to the Public Works.
We can write that language in there.
So let it be written, so let it be done. Number 5.
You guys ready to move on to number 5?
King's Landing.
Okay, require neighborhood park or common area space of at least 3 residents serving amenities. So potential compromises will require 1 meaningful active amenity rather than 3. Allow me-ride public parks or trails to satisfy all or part of the requirement when the development provides direct pedestrian connection. Exempt developments below a specified number of lots or dwelling units. So you heard from that one developer who showed up at the last meeting that it's like they can require a lot to be dedicated as a neighborhood park, the HOAs may not want that. Or it could be dedicated to the city, of course, the city doesn't want to do it because that's more labor and cost for us. So then that question of like, okay, do you want a sprinkling of neighborhood parks for every development, or do you want to have more of a communal park, like the North Park, or Legacy Bank Park, I should say? Or is there something else you want to see?
$1 in the jar
Dollar in a jar?
for saying North
For saying
Park.
North Park.
He said Legacy Bank.
Yeah.
He was
He said
correcting
or, I
himself,
should
he
say.
righted himself.
I did, I read
You're
myself.
right.
I still think
There's multiple jars of dollars that I contribute to, I promise.
On this particular thing, if there is a retention pond, which most developments have that, I think there should be a walking path around it. Or like that be part of an amenity, but, and I would be willing to compromise if the developments are very close to Linear Park or Legacy Bank Park, with a connection of a sidewalk.
Yeah,
That's
with a direct pedestrian connection.
36 houses right there in that little corner.
right. The development at Willows Ridge
Mm.
isn't going to have a place for an amenity, but it will be
Yeah.
right across the street from
Yeah.
Legacy Bank Park. I think that if that is, I think that that's a reasonable compromise. I think that other communities that are disconnected, and are in no way connected through sidewalks should have more than a walking path, in that
Correct.
community.
And stocking a pond with fish is not, I really struggle with that.
I don't know about that, I just know about walking, like a place to walk around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying
I don't
we're
know how
requiring
you
more
push
than
off
that.
pond,
Yeah.
Yes,
If we're
I'm not-
requiring
I'm
more
not-
stocking the pond cannot
I'm
be
not a
another one.
fisherman, but if that's what's happening over at,
You're not a walkman, you're a walkman.
yes, I'm a walkman.
So you're saying if there's a retention pond, there has to be a walking path around it?
That
I
would
don't
look
care if
nice.
they fish it,
Right.
or if they fish it.
But fishing it can't, if they're not in connection to the park, fishing it can't be another amenity. That is one amenity to me as a whole. That would be my thought.
I would want another amenity.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
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 Well,
That can't be the.
The
only
fishing
amenity.
can't be the other
Right,
amenity.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
And remind me, does this apply to any R2, or didn't we have like a threshold of development of so many houses or more?
We didn't have a threshold,
We
it was
talked about
subjective.
10,
We just simply
right?
said that you guys can waive the provisions if we felt like that it was practically impossible for it to be applied.
Right, like if somebody,
Right.
Willow's a good example, for example, but Willow, of course, is single family.
right, but it can't fit very many homes, let
Yeah,
alone.
there was no threshold,
apartments,
it
right?
was simply if we felt like it was untenable, given the layout for whatever reason, or the proximity, or the size, or the dimensions of it, that it was practically untenable for us to have that.
But then again, they could come to us
Yes,
with the design at that point. We could look at it and say, okay, we see why you can't have an amenity
they
here.
would have a rough sketch, so it doesn't have to be a full plat, but they could have a rough sketch that says, this is why I can't have a park.
Right, that makes sense.
I still think if that is the case, then they have to make some sort of connection for people to get from that, like, for example, 183rd Street that we looked at last year. I was reviewing both of those videos this week, and there has to be, and that's on the other side of Arbor Creek. There are no sidewalks that connect Liberty Homes even to Arbor Creek, and then Arbor Creek connects to 23rd.
We're creating islands.
Right, so any neighborhoods that went around in those places, they would have to have an amenity or a sidewalk that connects them to the city, so they have accessibility to get to a park. or-
Some places it'll still be a physical impossibility. We've got an R4, which this includes R4, that's on 5 acres. It's gonna be 60 units. It's already been entitled. You guys will hear about it at some point here pretty quick, and it's only 5 acres. There's nowhere to put a park.
Right,
This wouldn't apply to it because it's already been approved previously, but, so there's gonna be circumstances because of the size where it's just not gonna work.
I think that's just bringing it to us.
And it's also disconnected and it's far enough away from amenities, there's no way you could tell them, yeah, you gotta connect to the one that's a mile away.
I feel like even the 183rd, even if we made the connection, like, most people, or even if you had kids, right, letting them walk from there all the way to the park, even with
Well,
sidewalks.
Right. And that's kind of the point though about these kinds of things. There are going to be children in these neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
They're not all gonna be in their rooms playing video games. A lot
Well,
of
that's
them
our
might
hope,
be.
and they need to get consideration.
But there should be options for them to be able to go outside and play.
No, I agree.
Ride their bikes, you know.
Safely.
I think a size threshold could work. I mean, if it's something that's less than like 40, 35 acres, something like that, maybe it doesn't apply. And then you have the exception if it's connected, like Willows or Villas, where you're catty corner, you have a crosswalk right to a park.
If you're within a mile of the park.
We need connectivity too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you're within a
that is
mile
what
of
I'm
the park,
saying.
you have to provide connectivity
You can't, you don't
or
own the property.
an amenity.
Right, I mean, it's,
You saying provide a sidewalk inside, that would,
but it might not connect any, Liberty, like
And
you
if we
said,
don't follow the
Liberty
sidewalks
or
out.
Blueston or whatever, they don't own any way to get connected.
you're talking about, because you're not talking about running the sidewalk. Your question, what you're saying too, is that the sidewalk can't run all the way over to a park.
Right.
Because they'd have to run through the city right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
even if it did.
I'm saying, like when I'm walking over at Arbor Creek, the sidewalk ends
Mhm.
in that development. So
Yeah.
either you go out on the road or you just walk back through the development and
Right.
get back on and walk over by Amelia Earhart, right? So like any developments that go in behind there, can you connect them through those neighborhoods, like for them to connect into our community? This is getting
So
off
they're
track,
not
but
on an
I'm just
island.
saying,
No, I see what you're
If
saying,
they-
or
if they
if we're not gonna do an
own the
amenity, can we, maybe this is far-fetched, can we say, hey, we require sidewalks on one side, but if there's no amenities and you can't get to this, can we do the sidewalk on both sides so that kids can ride their bikes, it is a loop, you can walk safely, is that,
Could be.
I mean, you can still do it there.
It's just a little difficult because developments, we usually require, and Ryan's trying to talk about this too, but we usually require developments that, you know, if they're gonna stub out, so you'll see a road stop, and then you'll see the signs planted,
Right.
because they know this road's gonna continue into the future, into another development. In theory, I mean, you could do the same thing with sidewalk stops, and then you take it over at the next development. It would just require some foresight on that end, if we're saying that.
Let's think of the outcome we're trying to achieve. For the
Right.
areas of town that are disconnected, we want those people to have an amenity to enjoy.
right.
So I think we require it. Do we require 1 or 4, which is how it's currently written?
I mean, I think one is plenty, but also if they have a retention pond, like
If
it has to have a.
To qualify it, it needs to have a path around it. Yeah.
no, not,
But it can't be,
Not
that can't be the
qualify.
only thing.
Okay.
It doesn't qualify as the amenity.
it is, if you have a retention pond, you are required to have the walking path.
Yes.
But you also have to have an amenity,
Yes.
and the amenity is not fishing catfish out of the retention pond.
Yes.
I think we want to be careful about requiring walking paths around the ponds. That's
Okay.
expensive, unless you're going to allow it to qualify as their amenity.
Okay.
Well, but then it would be everybody's amenity. And we never,
Could be. I mean, that's a recreational area. You have a walking trail around a pond, and that you can fish or
I was
bicycle
just,
around.
yeah,
It's not common, most detention ponds don't have walking trails, so if you drew in a walking trail, that would be considered a general amenity.
And I think the only exception to requiring 1 amenity or 4 as it was currently written, which I think maybe we want to consider tweaking down a bit, the only exception would be is if you have a direct trail connection to a public amenity such as a park or a pool.
yeah.
No, that.
Yeah,
That would probably
That's a
be
good-
the exception.
that's good.
And then if there's some really small tract piece of land that comes up, we'll just bring it to you guys and say, hey, this doesn't make financial sense to make them put an amenity in, so you guys might wanna consider waiving that. Say it's an 8-acre piece or something like that.
That's a good point, so basically, I mean, one part of this resolution if adopted in July 6th would basically give you guys a lot more input into the design and layout of developments moving forward, which I think is something you guys are anxious for, generally speaking. Yeah, so that's not a bad thing either, I mean, considering you would have to have more feedback into it. There might be multiple iterations that go above and beyond simply approving zoning ordinances and plats. You might have multiple iterations of design review, because if there's any questions, we're gonna just have to take it to council. That might not be a bad thing, that might be something you guys are okay with.
I think the question we're trying to answer with this is, do we wanna require 3 amenities with one of them being an active amenity, which the feedback we've gotten is that's gonna be maybe too much, too expensive for the developer to do up front or for the HOA to do themselves at some point.
So can we require an amenity and say if they don't connect to the park, the pool, something like that, then we can require an active amenity as well?
I think we just require the meaningful active amenity.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's, I think we just require number 1,
Unless number 2.
unless there is not access to a local park.
So 1 and 2 is our compromise.
Do you guys wanna get rid of the half-acre requirement?
For a park.
No, they can just come and show it to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where the half acre came from initially, so I just, whatever.
Okay, so we're gonna require 1 meaningful amenity. The exception would be for developments that have a direct trail connection to a public amenity such as a park or a pool. Keep it simple.
I agree.
One thing that came up, which is good and ties into that, is that when we met with Travis Whistler, is the idea of putting the public amenity on a reserve would be better than having a dedicated lot, because then they can still recoup that cost. They can sell that lot, but they can still have the active amenity that's in a reserve area, which you can't sell anyway.
And then that could be greater than a half acre.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I forgot to mention that part, we'll omit
And
the
is
half
that-
acre.
I don't know if this is a foolish question, but that won't be dangerous to any children or anything like that?
No, it's very common to see parks and reserve areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one at Trails End is actually in a reserve.
So,
Okay.
so is the Bridger Maple or Pine Valley Estates is on a reserve. It's very common to actually stick in the reserve, which is something I forgot, so that's my apologies on that end, is that I probably should have put that language in there, and then I remembered it.
It's okay, just
Yeah.
started talking about it, so
Yeah.
we can add it in, right?
Sounds like I need more caffeine, so yeah.
We'll get that fixed.
Yeah.
This is good feedback.
The point is, we are trying to collaborate, we are trying to figure these
And we're
things
not
out.
just-
And we don't know all the language that you all know, we're just trying to get to a point that gets the community what it needs.
Yeah, we can certainly put active amenities in reserves and then still sell lots, that way we won't have to.
Okay.
Let's do it.
They're gonna
As
do
long as
that
it's there.
anyway, probably, cause they don't wanna lose their lot.
Right.
I don't care where it's at, as long as it's there.
Okay, are we ready to go to 6?
I think we are.
Number C.
This came up multiple times, so and Craig, feel free to chime in, Ryan, of course, too, that, I had one developer actually say that 6 wasn't a problem, and then he backtracked, said 6 was a problem, so, and then we met with other developers who said that 6 was a problem, and that they thought 4 was reasonable for design, but this is something for you guys.
I just thought that on kind of a range, first mid numbers, if we said 4 to 6, and that gives some flexibility.
Well, I think it's always a minimum, right? They can do
Yeah,
8, they can do
it's gonna
10, we're
be
saying.
But
If
I'm
you're
saying
say
we're
4,
gonna,
6,
you know, that, what our expectation is.
I think we've budgeted a lot. I think
Yeah,
we've moved a
I guess
lot.
I could go 5, but I drove through ones that had 4 different ones,
Right.
and it looks very repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think actually an odd number is always better than an even number.
Or you, I don't know your reason, I just like it.
So you wanna go with 7?
Seven has always been my favorite number. I'm telling you.
Seven.
Required, the
Seven is the number.
777.
I
Is the
think
number.
when you're looking aesthetically at something, it's, I mean, it looks better to have an odd number
Mhm.
of it. I mean,
So 5?
So we're meeting them in the middle? That's
I
fine.
would go 5.
Alright.
Sold American, 5.
That's fine.
We got this done in 50
I like
seconds.
7.
Okay, let's move to number
I love
7.
the
That's
number
right, number
7.
7.
I'm not budging on this. I'm really not.
Oh, excuse me,
oh,
do we
no.
want to go back?
No,
No.
number 7, sorry. Keep going.
because these are slab homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are slabs, so,
They can be, most of them are slabs, some of them are not.
but, I mean, most of the twin homes or duplexes that we're talking about are slabs. They're not, do not have basements.
Some of them have basements.
Some are split level, some have basements, not as common.
I would say that 95% of them are on slabs.
Yeah.
Of the modern ones.
And I don't know what developers fuck this, so again, not throwing stones, but Travis Whistler himself installs these storm shelters all the time in
We're talking
duplexes.
10%.
Or
Oh, no,
real
there's
seven,
seven.
okay, well, seven, okay.
That 7 and the 7 on my computer.
Are different.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I was reading.
Mine's a
that.
storm shelter requirement, that's why I was like, I'm not budging.
Sorry. We're on Windows per the slide, that's what
Okay,
the
we're gonna go to
says.
number 8.
No,
Oh, we're backwards,
Let's
okay.
finish,
Seven?
let's finish
Oh.
7.
Okay.
I think on this,
Well, I might budge here, I don't know.
one thing I would like to consider adding on this is just that 2 there to allow other glazed or transom or side lights to count towards the 10. I think that would be reasonable.
Yeah, I don't wanna omit it completely.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't think that that's an option. I think that homes need to look like homes,
Mhm.
and there should be
I think
a
2's very
window
broad as
and a
well.
door that,
Yeah, 2's very broad, I don't,
Well, I think this 10% calculation can be difficult, and so the 2 allows them to maybe put like a side light next to the front door with a window next to it to get a little more percentage of glass, or maybe a transom over the garage on the gable, or, you know, but from the front, it makes it look more like a home, I think.
Right.
That's,
I'm fine with that as long as they have a window, right? Like, I don't wanna say 10% and then that's why I said I think it's just too broad. I wanna be
But
clear
if
that they
you're-
still
if
have to
you're-
have a window.
But if you're going on percentages, then we're back to calculating things,
mhm.
and it just makes it a lot more time consuming and work to track. Allows for more variety with the, I mean, put a window on top of a transit with a.
What is
porch opening?
next to.
Side light's the window next to your door,
Next to
like when you
your
open your front door.
We don't, sorry, we're not too old.
What's that?
We don't have those, our houses
Oh, I
are
don't
too
have
old.
one either.
You need to come to the corner of Second and Spruce, we have. They put one.
I like number 2 on this one.
Transom windows are like the long ones that are up high to let light in, that you can't see in.
Oh, okay, I'm fine with number 2.
I'm not sure porch openings though, where,
The unglazed
Okay,
frame
that one out.
spaces between the support columns, posts, or railings of a porch. The unglazed frame spaces between the support columns, posts, or railings of a porch.
huh,
I mean.
So it's like if you have like a rail, or slats, what do some people call them?
balusters.
Yeah,
Banister.
yeah. Like on your front porch, this is more ranch style or the World War II style. Like if you have your porch, but then you have like a wood column and then a rail, and under the rail you have a bunch of vertical
Oh, yeah.
slats. Those are porch open. That area is called a porch opening.
No, I don't think those are applied.
Yeah, the porch openings doesn't seem to fit.
I mean, could we just say that the 10%, but that side lights and transom windows can contribute to the 10%?
Side lights, transom windows, and other transparent or glazed architectural elements, and omit porch openings.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yes.
To me, the porch opening more so is like what we were talking about earlier about the recessed area, the common.
That solves it. Okay.
I don't think we should budge on this.
No.
And what I was saying before I realized our numbers were wrong is that this is not an uncommon thing. Travis Whistler himself, and I'm not throwing stones because I like Travis and I don't know that he made any comment about this, but he puts these storm shelters in all the time. So, I mean, like the triplexes that Schellenberg does, they have storm shelters. New build slabs that we do, we put in storm shelters. I don't think that this is unreasonable. I understand they're expensive, but we live in Tornado Alley.
It can literally just be the closet, like, doesn't PRC
They
just-
incorporated in the bill, that is my understanding, like.
It's
It is a substantial cost though,
This-
to add a storm shelter level of protection.
Yes.
It just makes sense to make it a closet because there's no
Space.
windows.
Right.
Yeah.
The space saver. I mean, it's from what we heard, it's $4,000 to $6,000 per unit. And one of the pushbacks we got, and we heard this one a lot on several of these, is, well, why aren't you requiring this to single-family homes? They're over 50% garage, they don't have to have storm shelter. And what I've always said to that is, you know, we're going through the comprehensive plan process. That's not as much of an immediate urgency to address those things. But thanks for the idea. I've taken that note, so when we do go through this, we may consider requiring the slab on grade single-family home to have a storm shelter.
I mean, I think if it's in duplexes, it should also be in single family homes. I don't disagree with that
I would
pushback.
agree with that.
So we want to keep 8.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that the consensus?
I don't know that I've seen that verbiage for that, though.
That's new. We
You
put in
haven't
parentheses
seen the what?
new. Yeah,
The
we didn't.
So I'd like to see how we're,
Yeah,
How are we
Required.
saying it?
Okay.
is the storm shelter, does that include like
It's
those
in-
rooms that, like what they
Yeah,
have
because
at BRC?
We had
Is that-
drafted
Usually
it.
they put them in the garage.
It was drafted as, it's not included in anything that you guys have seen, but behind closed doors with staff, that we've drafted it to have FEMA standards and ICC standards. FEMA standards and ICC is the National Construction Code. The FEMA standards is FEMA has set standards for certain hurricane and storm ratings that the ICC has adopted for building codes for a storm shelter. And so the language that we were drafting was taking that and putting it in there saying, hey, this has to meet that ICC FEMA standard for a tornado.
I'll send you the language tomorrow morning.
But yeah, that would include,
Oh, yes.
safe room or safe, closet or something in an attic or something in a garage even, you can have it inside the garage. There's different options for that.
I would be cautious though that, I'm not sure how it's being worded, but if you have a basement.
We don't need a storm shelter, right?
Right, but if you put in FEMA standards and stuff, I don't think a normal basement even counts either, so.
We would exempt it, it's basically the way it was
Yeah, but I would be
drafted.
careful too, because sometimes basements aren't full basements, so, you know, you wouldn't count crawl space, but if you have a view out basement,
No,
you
that
should
would be-
still probably let that count, right?
I don't know, I think that you could still take a
Like
shelter in
below
the
grade.
utility room, even if you out or walkout, you still have a utility room, and that's still cemented, that's still got cement.
Not all the way
walls.
around.
But a portion of it would be.
Yeah, so yeah, just, as long as we don't make it so restrictive that even somebody that has like a view out basement ends up having to put in a metal
Because
storm
they don't
shelter
need
in the
Oh, you're
basement.
saying, yes, yes.
I'm saying, yeah, like exempt if you have below grade
Yeah,
shelter, that you don't have to
Yeah.
meet
Yeah.
the
There is a basement. I
on
didn't know,
grade.
yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's very reasonable, yeah,
Yeah.
because.
That's good language, below grade shelter.
Yeah.
This is
Makes you
these are specific to
Slab.
slab homes.
But it doesn't say that, that's all I'm getting at, like,
Oh,
there's
good.
people that build.
So now we could say that?
Yeah.
We'll work, that language is a little newer to us. Remember, storm shelters and some of the other stuff kinda came up later.
I think the Schellenberger property actually did have that, they had it incorporated, I believe,
The closet.
in their laundry room. The laundry space was,
Utility room, yeah.
the shelter was in the middle of the house and
I
they had.
remember that.
I do believe that that's how that went,
I remember
so.
that.
And I know like, even in my home, it has a crawl space, and I just encapsulated it, so I don't.
Well,
That's my
like,
storm
we-
shelter, I did that myself, it was expensive.
I've seen them go into walk-in
If it has
closets
a
in the
crawl space.
master, I mean, there's so many ways that they could do it, I would say like a standard, not to make that worse, but I'd be curious where like the 4 to 6 came from, because I know like even back in 2022, like a standard storm shelter in Schellenberg's triplexes were like $7,500 a storm shelter. So, now, I don't know the sizing, I don't know the difference,
Those-
like,
It's those pods that were 4,500, so we
Mhm.
kinda thought 4 to 6 was probably a good range.
so usually a concrete company will come in and,
It totally depends, they can
Yeah.
put metal boxes in, they could do, I've seen in Oklahoma, the popular thing is to put a pit in your garage.
I've
Like
seen that.
changing oil, and you
Mhm,
just shut
yeah.
a steel door over it, so.
And Lowe's sells those plastic ones, put them in the dirt.
are we requiring a size on these storm shelters? I don't even know what the standard is, but we don't have like a one-person
If we
pod.
can all go get in our bathtub in the middle of the, I mean. I
Most
don't
of the
wanna
ones we're
microwave
seeing are
the
2
shower.
seat, like
That's kind of just a
2-seaters, but you
minimum.
could probably fit a couple other people in there.
Pile
Yeah.
In an emergency.
We're just trying to make sure people have a space to go if they,
Yeah.
you know.
So the
And-
requirement is like to require it on slab homes, unless they have a below grade
Mhm.
place that they
Well-
would go to, then if they don't have to have it.
We'll have Micah, Ryan, and Andrew work through that language, massage it a bit, and we'll send it out to you tomorrow. But we'll keep this requirement in.
Mhm.
We did it.
Well,
Just real quick,
there's a couple other things too on this.
you know, Ryan, you've been involved in a lot of discussions. Do you have any comments, like, give me a chance, both Ryans, I guess, you got opportunity.
Nothing additional than what's been shared tonight. I think the discussions have been very fruitful and very transparent. So, you know, I feel like we made really good progress tonight. So, no, I'm good. Thank you.
The only thing that I would mention is that, you know, obviously you reserve the right to grant exceptions to whatever you decide upon, but handling things on a case-by-case basis just opens up the city for greater risk, greater opportunity to challenge any decision as being arbitrary and capricious. And I'm not saying you can't do that or you shouldn't do that, but just if you come to a decision to make an exception, you just need to have a clear reason why you're doing it, and you need to apply those same thoughts and considerations consistently across the board. So, that's really the only
I would
additional
say-
food for thought that I would have.
I would say that the answer to that for me with you is the Schellenberg property.
Yeah.
When it came back to us, we also had community, feedback from Amanda with the seniors, like that was how that decision
Yeah.
came to be.
Very clear reasoning though.
Exactly.
You're
Not-
able to provide.
Not arbitrary.
So,
And
yeah.
it has to be consistent, so that
Yeah,
it's
it
not like
can't be,
they.
it can't be arbitrary.
It's not just like,
capricious.
oh, we
That's the
like the look of
standard.
it, so it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, those types of things, those would be the kinds of things that I would be looking for from a legal standpoint when you're considering whether or not to grant an exception. And, you know, I'll speak up if I think that it's, you know, too close to that impermissible standard, and whether I can defend it or not, so.
We count on you to defend us.
Yeah.
We're never to guarantee it. I can make an argument out of those things.
Or to my canvas, but anyway.
No, I appreciate the feedback. I think that's important. We covered all the bases this evening. So on to the.
Mayor, there's one base left. So the curvilinear road and the creating space to roughen a water softener, we never really got into the discussion on those with WABA or the developer or builders we spoke with. So there's just a lot of other things we were trying to work through, and so we kind of let those ones to the side. If it's something you guys feel super passionate about, we can continue some of that dialogue. And Micah, the curvilinear issue, he found a fairly large practical concern with that. If you want to share what you shared with me.
Oh, yeah, it was just the design standard. Well, when you have, let's say 6, it's just, when you have repetition, you know, so you have A, B, C, D, you know, let's just say that would be 4, A, B, C, D. When you do that repetition, A, B, C, D, and it said, you know, basically, curvilinear, you don't wanna have that repetition. You don't wanna have it, the way it was written is you didn't wanna have it again, you know, within the 5th lot or across the street. But the problem was that as soon as you get a cul-de-sac, you are gonna have it across the street, and there's no way around it. And that's something that we talked about, you know, if they're gonna do all the duplexes up front, then they're gonna do A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, and A, B, C, D is gonna do this. And then at some point, you're gonna have A across from A, B across from B, C across from C, and D across from D. So from a practical perspective, it became very difficult to actually apply the standards once adopted, to actually have that non-repetition if we had that curvilinear aspect even. But I think the curvilinear also had to do with designs too, which was breaking up monotony. But it was just the idea that it became technically kind of impractical to apply it. If you said that you can't have A across from A as a design, it's gonna happen inevitably, just by sheer repetition and probability. A is gonna be across from A at some point. And then I'm like, well, I can't, you know, then it's done, you know, and then you're stuck. Because if you have A across from A, then there's a high probability of B is across from B, and then you can't have them within that proximity of one another, and then you stop, and then you're like, I can't move on, it's flat, and it stops. So that's kind of where we stop. That is, anyway, just kind of the layout concerns I had from a practical perspective. I think also the curvilinear was kind of a design element, which is still, I think we're still, Ryan Peck and I are trying to walk through that, because certain plats are not going to even have curvilinear streets in some aspects. They're going to have gridded or, you know, just straight on streets, and so then it's just, you're still going to have that aspect of it. Because what if you have, for example, Bridger or Maple, as soon as you drive north on Spring Hill, you head east or west, you're on a straight row, and you're gonna have that straight row of duplexes. And so,
I think I did read through some of that stuff in Derby standards, because they do have that, you know, alternating, but also whatever's across the street can't match, they can't, I mean, I
That's
don't
how
know.
ours is written.
I
Ours
don't
is
know.
written that way, so you're saying that's.
I think that Derby made a mistake.
I'm just saying.
I think Derby doesn't realize.
I
what they
just
did.
read that and saw that, so.
Is there anyone besides Derby that's doing this, or are they kind of getting right before us?
I don't think Wichita had that in there about the non-repetition. I think when Derby adopted it, they didn't actually do a mental mock-up of what a plat would look like when you have lots, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, and they
I
didn't
think the
realize.
point here is that we just do not want the monotony of military row home housing. We want the variety,
Mhm.
and, you know, there are plenty of single-family homes that look exactly alike that are across the street from each other.
Well, you can
We
mix
want,
them.
we want neighborhoods, and I think by asking for, 5 designs, we're going to get that.
They should be able to find a way to vary it. They could change a roof height, they could make some variance to the floor plan, so the one across the street.
Colors.
Yeah.
So it looks
But
different.
you could go with 5, A, E, B, C,
That's exactly what
A,
it's
B.
just
Yeah.
mix up
I mean,
those.
just,
Yeah,
let's put the ping pong balls in the hopper, and let's pop them out and randomly.
You
You
could
might
generate
have,
it
you might
out.
have you might have 2 next to each other that are the same
Maybe 1 or 2
Yeah, okay.
areas.
in areas, but it's just.
The way it was written
just some
originally, B and
random-
E could not be beside each other.
I mean, just have some, yeah.
If you're okay with some variety, that's interspersed, but if you don't mind if B and D are touching, or A is within 3 lots of A.
well, yeah, cause right now it's written that you can't have the repeating one within 5 lots.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
you would have to go from A
Yeah.
all the way through the alphabet and get back to A.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
We can soften the language to make it say something where you must make every effort to, or something like that. That way
Yeah.
there's some tolerance where the community development director or planner can
Yeah,
try
or
to
you just
achieve
say-
the outcome we're
Hold on,
seeking.
though.
Or you just say
Because-
3, because they still have to have.
Softening the language gives us what to fall back on.
Softening language simply means that you're allowed to have a mix of the repetition, but you're gonna have 5 design standards.
Yeah.
But those 5 design standards is A, B, C, D, E, but E and E can touch on one case maybe in some rare instances, or E can be across from E, or A can be across from A. But if I can't do that, and they have to be within 5 lots of each other, that process becomes mathematically and practically impossible.
Can we just say it be like 2 lots?
Yeah, can we just say 2?
Sure.
I don't even
and
want
please
E to
allow
be
also,
threshold.
I
if
mean,
you can
it's
say
like
within
these
2
numbers.
lots, that's fine, but also if you allow it to be across the street, 'cause at some point when you hit that curve on a cul-de-sac, you're gonna be across the street from it.
But not if you can
You can be
flip
catty
flop the
corner.
2 that
Yeah.
would have been
Yeah.
5.
Engineer, the engineer. I like
Yeah,
it.
so just say at least 2, that way
At
it's
least 2.
A, B, C, A,
Yeah.
B,
Mhm.
B, A, like you could, you
That
got a
allows.
lot more flexibility, you
It
got.
does
That's
that.
the beginning of Indicata Delita.
I was waiting for him to say
They
something.
create like a method out, right, and that you look at.
Yes.
That's how
I
music
feel
gets
like
started.
they're like.
Because we don't want A, B, A, B,
understand
A,
kind of
B,
what
and
we're
then
getting
C,
at.
C, C.
Right.
Right,
And
so
so
you need at
like,
least
I feel like we could
2
probably leave it to Micah to be like, this meets the intent or it doesn't, like, I feel like we're really.
What happens when he's not here and somebody
Micah
goes,
a lot, like, and I think if we just say we have to have 5 different design
Rip it
standards
out.
and let Micah like run with it, like he understands what we're trying to avoid and what we're trying to say. And when he
Just
gets
off
the
the
plat,
Mhm.
he's
But-
gonna be like,
Well, you guys will
you better
see.
mix this
I
up a
think
little
that-
bit, cause then council's gonna be like, nope.
I think the point of even just putting 2 in there, because I don't think you're going anywhere, but God forbid you weren't here tomorrow.
True.
We don't know that the next person's gonna do as good of a job as you do.
What I'll probably do is the plats require single family and 2 family to be identified. I will
Yeah.
probably require not only a 1 and a 2 to indicate 1 single family, 2 family, but an A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay.
Because that way you can see the A, B, C, D, and E, and then you guys can make a determination if I've met the criteria that you're looking for. Because then then you'll feel my misery.
Let's not make it too long.
Let's not make it too hard and let Micah just
Yeah.
do his job.
I think Derby made a mistake.
You guys also don't wanna have to legislate every single development. There's a
No,
reason
we
you have
don't.
staff and we have
That's why we're
policies.
doing this.
Exactly.
I think the standard is the standard, like write it how you need to make it work, Micah, and then we're just gonna trust you to, like,
Make variety.
to make it look good. I I know, I trust you.
Yes, Ashley,
You got
that's
this.
acceptable. Let me run by Ashley here. Okay. So for the repetition, are we taking that part out?
We're
I would
just
say
We have a lot.
reduce it to two.
2 lots.
Two.
Two lots.
Yep.
I can do that. I can work with that.
What was the other one?
The water softener.
Oh, it's gotta be one for water.
Can we just require that they leave enough space for a water softener install, not that they have to install it themselves,
that
but,
that's-
That was what we were.
yeah,
that
They
was
just,
don't have to install it, but they have to leave a space for it.
yeah,
It's Goddard.
I don't think that's asking too much.
Sorry.
it?
Okay.
Even if it's the garage, I don't.
It can be garage. We freeze.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Valid.
Well, what do you think?
I think in a slab on grade, it's hard to find a place for one, which is why you don't see them.
Well, they do have a new kind of water softener it's changed, it doesn't require salt. And
It's
that's the
probably
biggest
expensive.
part. Probably is.
I don't know. I don't know what there is for that.
All water
I
softener.
mean, don't quote me on this, cause I don't know how this came out, but I feel like Dan Funky when he just moved into those houses. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, but I think, like the laundry room, he's not, but you could do a stackable washer and dryer and make room for it there. So maybe it's just having
If
the
his
option.
water is even there. His water could be routed on the whole other side of the house.
I think he had it installed then.
All I'm saying is,
If it's not there, then it's,
yeah, some houses.
Well, and I mean, I think it's a goal of our community to have a treatment plant in the relatively near future, and now we've required everyone to have a water softener. Some people may say, I don't want one because I can't haul the salt, I have no means of
Maintain it.
doing it, I don't want the
Yeah.
expense of the salt.
I think
So-
that's the other thing that we have to consider
Mhm.
too. Everybody
The
who
cost of it.
lives in here isn't gonna have the means necessarily to do the upkeep on that.
I don't think we require having it. I understand also like, how do you leave space for it, but just being.
Build the water treatment
Build a water
Okay.
treatment plant.
Okay.
I
So
have-
they have to
I
build a
have-
water treatment plant for us.
13 things that kill your city, one being
Water.
Water.
Water, we've got water quantity under control. We just need to grow to a size where we can afford to do the water quality piece.
I accept.
Look, I got one other question, and this, I just have to go back to it because of what Ryan was saying about exceptions, is if somebody had one city lot here in town and they wanted to build a duplex on it, this would apply to them in some way still, right?
No,
No? Okay, and why not?
because they have to rezone it. If they don't need to rezone it, then
Well, yeah, what if they do have to rezone it from R1 to R2?
then you would probably just waive the provisions of the resolution.
But they'd have to bring it before us?
Yeah, well, if a rezoning's happening, you're gonna have to approve the rezoning anyway.
Okay.
And then you would simply say that we are not requiring this restrictive covenant to be applied to that property.
Pine Street,
I'm just trying to think of like the extreme, the one,
Yeah.
late
And that's
Worst
not,
case
the intent
scenario.
of this is not
23.
for
Yeah.
that scenario.
Right.
Right.
Obviously,
Anything
because-
that's already rezoned
Yeah.
or already constructed and then
No, I-
rebuilt,
yeah.
or, yeah, you're not gonna be able to do anything.
Yeah, a single lot, and that's kind of like before Pine Street, for
Pine
example.
Street.
You would just simply say that the resolution when it's adopted, it doesn't apply immediately. We would then require them to have a restrictive covenant apply to that property. You would simply say, we are not requiring you to have this restrictive covenant apply to your property.
okay.
Because of practical impossibility of this application.
It does create a small concern for me with infill opportunity. We have some 3-acre tracts over there by the car wash. That would be an amazing place for townhomes that should be zoned R4. We're not gonna make them do 2 single-family homes and 4 townhomes there, so, I mean, I do struggle with that to some degree. I think it could have been, I think that it could be wise to put a size limitation
Well,
on
we
it.
did talk about the size at one point.
Yeah, I feel like whatever number we would come up with would be arbitrary, that's
Yeah.
my issue with that, so. Maybe it's a conversation about infill, that this is an infill.
Yeah, and then you kind of have to
I
define
think there's
that.
too many what ifs, which then again, to Naomi's point, leads back to, can you mitigate the what ifs?
I can mitigate to an extent, but of course, every rezoning you guys have to approve, I can't approve it.
Yeah,
I'll make
but-
it unilaterally, so every rezoning you're gonna see.
And to that point, I feel more comfortable saying, well, this doesn't apply.
The argument could be the intent of this was not to disallow infill development.
I think when you see it on a case-by-case situation, since you have to prove every ordinance for rezoning, you'll simply say it doesn't apply in this particular case.
Like, we trust that if you're bringing it in front of us and saying that you think it's fine, then it's probably fine.
Oh, I'll let you make that determination. You're gonna see every rezoning, because I have to.
No, I know, but I mean, you're pretty honest
If
about.
the covenant
Yeah.
doesn't apply, I think it would.
We hope.
Rather something else. Yeah. Well, I mean,
We'll get this fixed up for you guys and send it out tomorrow, because we're off Friday. It'll be a busy day tomorrow.
So do we need to make a motion to do that?
You don't need a motion, no, we would just simply receive and file. If you wanna make a motion, you can.
We've received it, it's in my paper file here. We're recording this, so.
As
long as it doesn't go in
It's
file
on film.
13.
No, file 9, no, we'll get it all put in and sent out to you guys tomorrow.
Not everybody
Or
has
the
a file
X-Files?
15.
Maybe just give us some feedback based on what you heard from us tonight and what
Right.
we're looking at doing with the
Yeah.
edits. Do you feel confident as a staff that we're equipping you with reasonable restrictions?
I can apply what you want, you're gonna get a mix, you're definitely gonna get a lot of people asking for waivers of the resolution. You're gonna get a lot of that. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a lot of developers saying, okay, what did you guys adopt? And we're gonna send this out once it's adopted to them. And they're gonna go, do I wanna do this or do I wanna go to Wichita? Some of them are just gonna go to Wichita, maybe that's what you guys want, and that's okay. Then you're gonna get some developers going, I feel like I can do this, and then they're gonna get the engineering firm, they're gonna be like, this is a little tough. I don't know how many of these lots I can do, and they're gonna come ask you for provisions to waive portions of the resolution. You're gonna see that. And then you're gonna see some people who are like, well, I can apply all of this, and that's what we're gonna do. So you're gonna see a mix of everything, but you're definitely gonna see people asking for provisions of the resolution being waived.
But you were pretty honest about like the way we structured, like scattering the different types. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as everything else here, do you think that it's realistic?
Yeah.
Overall.
I do.
Yeah. I think I can apply it. I think I can apply what's being asked of me. I think the tough one, the only thing that was kind of left up in the air, I still think I'd have a hard time with the window aspect of it. Based on what Travis Whistler showed, those 6 examples, that's the only one that I'm like, okay, is this transom enough to justify that? You know, do I feel like that's enough of a window to justify that provision? That's the only part where I might have I might talk with Ryan and Craig about that. If they send me 4 or 5 designs, I'm looking at it like, that's easy. And we saw some from Travis Whistler. There's 2 that he showed me that I was like, that's easy, done. There was 3 that I was like,
But those 3 are also the ones that I don't think are gonna need a lot of the other things.
Right.
that's right.
But
So,
those are, this doesn't apply to those, they've already been entitled, so
But those are the ones they wanna continue to.
exactly.
Maybe, but he will have a long runway to modify his floor plan or find something else that fits this.
Yeah.
I think that what we did tonight and the way that we have worked with our building development community will be very well appreciated. I think it's gonna be well received. I think that your willingness to move off center and compromise on some of this stuff should be thought of highly. And I anticipate, because we've had investors and developers telling us back since May, we're waiting on you to adopt this so we can move forward. I think it's gonna be good. And I hope the community appreciates too the thought and time and effort that you guys put into representing, you know, their interests as it relates to this. Cause we have all gotten a lot of sentiment from them over the years, and much warranted as well with that, so.
I can apply it.
It's
If
administrative.
I have questions, I'll just talk to Craig and Ryan.
There's cities all over the place who require you to submit pre-approved bill plans. This isn't a whole lot different than that, so I think we may be a little excited about that opportunity.
I just go back to the Walgreens sentiment in the firms
Never
that
gonna
we
let
spoke
that go.
to. I'm not going to, you know? I
Don't want the happy
I think we
Walgreens.
should
The
have a
product
nice
plan.
Walgreens, so.
Yeah.
That was you, right?
That might have been me. I don't know if there is one there.
You
You know
know,
where
I
it's
just
going.
think about those things, like, you know, I know that there was a comment made about all the 10 buildings on Kellogg, and all of those things happened before we came, but that doesn't mean that we have to continue in that vein. And, you know, we are just trying to build something that will last
We want
for
our
generations.
members to come in and go, wow, that is beautiful. Or pull up to our Walgreens at 4 a.m. and not be fearful of getting out of their car. So I think that that's,
No, we're not getting Walgreens.
No, maybe.
Get everybody excited.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get CVS.
Yeah,
Target.
yes.
I'm gonna
Right.
throw something in the trash.
Okay, let's move along here.
Okay, cause we've got another item.
We got one more item.
One more item. So this is also in line with the I-1, so the I-2s are our 4 strategic growth zone overlay district. So a quick background, we did talk about this during a joint workshop last year in August 27th about a strategic overlay district. Basically, it's defining an area that we feel that council collectively would feel favorable towards if people are submitting rezoning applications, that they would be more inclined to approve it, not just automatically approve it, because we can't do that legally, obviously, but feel more inclined to approve it, because, and also that possibility of, if this was adopted, this overlay district, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, that the provisions that we just discussed in I-1 may not apply in I-2, because if it did apply in I-2, they would simply go across the street to Wichita. And so to prevent that and still get the revenue, we'd simply say that the I-1 that we just discussed about, maybe wouldn't apply in I-2. It doesn't automatically give you carte blanche for rezoning, you still have to go through that process, but you feel more inclined and favorable towards approving those if that was in that specific area. I know 2 council members, I guess you guys saw that video, you weren't here during that time, but.
Agreed. She was
So.
How was it?
Okay. So, this is something that we discussed. I'm not gonna go through all the analysis. I'm just gonna jump straight to this. You guys saw, some of you saw this, last year, but this is us in 2000 with Wichita, Greenby, Wichita, Blueby, and Goddard. So this is our area. 2025, this is the area. And we projected, based on growth trends, what was a reasonable extension of Wichita into 2050. What would the next 25 years look like? And we did a sort of methodological projection based on reasonable trends in growth and development. So we said that's maybe what Wichita could look like by 2050, if we didn't grow, obviously. So, and there's some provisions in there.
This is missing Rachel Burke Estates too, because we talked about this before. We didn't update the map.
And it is Ozzy. You see, it is Ozzy, it's not there, Rachel Brooks. So I threw those in, so you'll see it here.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and so we threw it in there, but that's the strategic growth zone, the purple. The purple is saying, hey, green is Wichita currently, blue is Goddard currently. Purple is a strategic growth area. We can't say that zoning's automatically applied in that area. We've determined that with attorneys, that's not allowed. But we said, hypothetically, if a developer picked a spot in the purple, especially one that was closer to us, and they wanted to rezone it, and they wanted to rezone it for duplexes, and we felt that maybe it would be reasonable to simply waive the provisions of what we had just discussed in that area, so they don't just go across to Wichita and do it. Now you have those duplexes right across the street. So
You're still driving by them every day and they're a part of your community, but you have none of the benefit of it.
Right.
Which we already have at least 2 examples of that now. I'd argue we have even more of it as you look further east on Kellogg.
Right.
So there's 2 parts to that, the strategic growth zone. One is looking favorably about future rezonings in those areas, and also considering the possibility of not imposing the resolution of design standards and everything else in that area. So those are the 2 parts of the strategic growth.
So, the purple areas that are west of 167th is not already, those are
Unincorporated,
Sedgwick County?
unincorporated Sedgwick
Yeah,
County.
everything in purple and everything white is unincorporated Sedgwick County, except of course Garden Plains further out. But basically, we're looking at Goddard and Wichita. We're not concerned about Garden Plains.
What about south and north?
And you're not, coming all the way to 183rd, you're coming to,
Yeah, we're about halfway between 167 and 183rd.
It's a half-mile line between 167th and 183rd.
And then everything east of that.
You see the 167th Street development in blue, that kind of gives you a good idea.
and Pawnee.
Mm-hmm.
Just for understanding, what drove this versus going a little further south and north of Goddard as well? Like, what was the deciding factor in the
Cost.
line?
It
Okay.
just, it becomes financially uneconomical to go that far out. Now, that may be a different conversation in 50 years, but.
Right.
Yeah, we
Just-
would hate for a developer to say, well, this is perfect, we're gonna buy this, and we know Goddard's gonna look favorably upon the rezoning, so let's do this. And then we're like, well, now we have to drag water and sewer, a mile up the road.
I'm also curious, the MacArthur piece that goes so far east.
That is, the reason we like that is, well, there's a couple of reasons, but If you look at that area compared to the area further north, look how much more unsubdivided those tracts of ground are. You got bigger tracts of unsubdivided rural land, 80, 150 acres plus on many of those. And it would be easier for us to unilaterally annex some of those as well because of how far away our neighbors to the east are compared to us. But you can see one of the other reasons it's just the way it is because the higher value land that's developing more quickly is further north. There's going to be more unincorporated area to the south.
And in that north area, there is a overlay for the,
Expressway.
the expressway.
Yeah.
And that's kind of,
You can actually see a portion of it right here.
Yeah.
So the purple, none of it is annexed into Wichita or into Goddard.
Not
And so
currently,
you're
no.
saying if developers come to us in these areas,
Potentially,
potentially we would be more favorable
toward
toward.
a rezoning. You simply kind of making a statement. That's all you can really do with that overlay because you can't, like I said, you can't say, yes, we shall grant an R4. You can't do that. So, because you have to go through due process. And so you're simply saying, we are more favorably inclined towards a rezoning this area as a statement.
To rezone it and not apply all of the covenant.
Correct.
More market-driven approach.
Even with that being said, developer, obviously if they buy this, let's say, they can just go to Wichita. It's not like they have to come to us. There's nothing that guarantees that.
Well, I mean, to your point, if they go up in that corner and nothing, we would have to supply everything to that point and we would have to do that down here too.
We're getting a little closer to the north than you think with some of the stuff coming down the pike. I mean, we're already a half mile line in the next section north of Central on 167th, and there's opportunities in the works that could further that along.
Okay.
The 21st really not that far away.
And we're always considering, I know that you are, this is probably a really dumb question, but I'm gonna ask it. So we're always considering, like, do we have water and resources if we were to expand out? Like, as we expand out and if we were to approve these, we were thinking about the resources and.
Yeah, the city is very well positioned because of the decisions of this governing body over the last 3 years to invest in our water distribution, our water supply. We are very far along on the planning process for our new well, for the ground we bought. That's another 140 million gallons of water. We've got our rural water district 4 pump station. We're actually going to be bringing you guys some work from Burns and Mack, our engineering firm we've been working with on this, that's discussing our water reuse future plan. We're budgeting for 2027 to begin the 10-year CIP specifically for sewer and water reuse, which also includes treatment to soften the water.
Yeah.
So we're being very forward thinking with all of this to prepare for these opportunities. We want to be well positioned to be able to say, yeah, we can serve you when they come.
I just know, it's good, I think, for our community to hear that, the
Yeah.
answer to that question.
Yeah. Yep.
So. And there's conversations maybe with the county, right, to make sure that the fire department could continue to serve, or if they would have to, I know that that's not a city problem.
So think of it this way, every time we add a rooftop, there's another person who is paying property taxes toward the fire district.
Yep.
So their revenues are gonna grow and they're gonna be able to expand their service as the service demand increases, just like we are. And as you know, likely, they've been having a lot of conversations about making some changes that would make them have even more resources to better serve the county.
The fire department in the past they're in favor of us growing, because when we grow, they're protected. When Wichita grows, they're not. Every tract of land that goes to Wichita, they have their own fire department, so.
Okay.
So they
good to know.
gave me a long, very sad story in 2021 about protecting their young and up and coming firemen, and hoping the city will continue to grow.
This is the county fire.
Right, we're part of them, yeah, but
Yes.
Wichita's got their own fire department, so they're
They
always
want
in
us to
favor of
grow.
us growing,
Yeah.
yes.
That makes sense.
We're super blessed to have that combo facility in town, and it's a
Yeah.
nice
Mhm.
facility.
think that anytime that we can grow in this way, like, yes, Goddard, we wanna protect and make sure that we have nice things, but if it's a matter of if Wichita's gonna be able to grow and their tax base before we get it, I think that's just a no-brainer, because the more people that are paying taxes, the better possibility of taxes going down for, you know, some of our, you know, for our community. Because it just makes sense when more people are thrown into the pot.
I think if the sentiment of the group is to move forward with the overlay district, we mentioned in some of our correspondence with you kind of what that timeline looks like. I do think to accommodate some of the concerns that our city attorney has shared just about, you know, if we were to waive the provisions of the design standards for everything in the growth zone, something that would make me feel more comfortable is maybe if we created a new zone class that allows for how R2 is already allowed today without the restrictive covenant. That would be just applied to the strategic growth overlay area. That's the beauty of the comp plan process we're going through right now, is we kind of worked through some of that and kind of drawn the map where we think certain types of land uses are appropriate. So, but I think doing the growth zone overlay now just sends out that signal that we need to be sending immediately as we kind of work through maybe looking at a new zoning class and looking at how we're mapping the land use in our community through the comp plan process.
It's just discussing that if we're gonna offer something different in this, that we keep a few of the standards.
Maybe you just get rid of the ratio, but you keep the standards. I mean, you guys can handle it how you want.
I mean, I think then just Goddard grows, and all we're providing the growth of Goddard is a million more military salary posts. So,
Yeah, we're doing that.
I'm not, we wanna grow, I wanna be very careful about how we handle that, but I don't know that waiving all of that is the answer either. I would agree with maybe its own class, like rezoning that.
Well, I know the conversation that we had in that meeting, cause I went back and watched it today. We had Ginger come and speak to us about all different types of, you know, housing in R4.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were like actual live, work, play things, you know, concepts where, you know, you had duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes, but then you also, within those communities, you had like retail spaces and that kind of stuff. Like all of that fits within the R4 concept, right?
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
Sounds more like a PUD when you throw in the commercial aspect. Just keep in mind, I've said this a lot of times, you gotta have that trifecta marriage of the developer, the lender, and the landowner coming together. The market's gotta be there. I mean,
Right.
I'm going back and forth, and I know our community development staff are right now with the person we've hired to do our housing study, and like we have these grandiose ideas of the type of housing that all of our research says we should have, but we also have to resonate with the principles that while we want all those things and it's great, that we still have to have that marriage between lender, developer, and landowner, and they have to be able to absorb those properties no matter what the land use is.
The thing, Amanda, that, I mean, with regard to like this specific area, if we are not favorable for an adjustment like this, Wichita is, and whether we do it or